My name is Lorene Rugel. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been working in the field of problem gambling for about 39 years now. Research has shown that folks who gamble even more than the norm, which may be more than only 5 times a year, have poorer medical outcomes, higher rates of cardiovascular problems, hypertension, heart disease, gastrointestinal disease, obesity, and a whole range of other physical illnesses.
I'm Daniel Blackwood, and I am the founder and director of the Evolution Group here in Albuquerque, and we focus on working with families who are struggling with mental health issues, addictions, and trauma. There is a significant percentage of the population that develops problems with gambling and is able to stop on their own. And what the research tells us is that a little more than a third of the time, that's exactly what happens. People are able to recover from their gambling problem without going to therapy, without seeking professional help.
There are some differences that set up a predisposition. For example, impulsivity might be a significant genetic factor that goes across all addictive disorders. Genetics behind attention problems, for example, can be part of a genetic marker. Predisposition to restlessness, agitation, difficulty self-soothing and dealing with difficult feelings. In some studies, up to 50% of the variance between those who do and do not have a gambling disorder can be attributed to genetics and biology, just as is true with substance abuse. And it's not like we're going to find the gambling gene. That's why not just a gambling disorder may run in families, but substance use, eating disorders, and other kinds of addictive behaviors may run in families. I may have been depressed, I may have been traumatized, and I gamble, and I don't feel the pain of that. It takes the pain away momentarily, and I have some hope that maybe I can feel better, or maybe I can get out of poverty. So a lot of positives seem attached with the gambling, but then I lose, and then I feel even more depressed. So it becomes this vicious cycle of, I gamble, I feel good, I feel happy, I lose. I keep chasing not just the money to solve the problems that gambling is creating even worse, but to solve my emotional problems, to solve my relationship problems, to forget about my trauma, to feel safe, to feel happy, to not have panic attacks. Harm reduction is a strategy to look at a behavior that a person is engaging in and look at that from the lens of how can we help this person reduce the harm of this activity in their life.
And this is an important finding because people have a hard time coming in for treatment for problem gambling because they don't want to be on the radar. There's a long list of harm reduction practices. One I like a lot that's very simple is just that a person writes down what their deeply felt motivation is for quitting. And then they can make reference to that later when they've had a relapse and they need to get back on track. And so natural recovery is a way that people can pursue information, skills, resources that will support them in stopping on their own. There are many people who gamble who actually wish to be well, but they're not sure how. And so harm reduction is a way of stepping in the direction of wanting to be well. So a person can, for example, limit access to their own funds. They could call a helpline and get support on the helpline. They can ask trusted family or friends to help support them. They can go to Gamblers Anonymous meetings. These are several ways on a long harm reduction list that people can use in order to support themselves in the general direction of quitting gambling. So harm reduction is best understood as a practical approach to addiction, because pure abstinence, or what we call cold turkey, doesn't work very well. So harm reduction is really warm turkey, right? It's the process of reducing the amount of time or money or other harm reduction techniques that support a person in eventually reducing harms associated with gambling. Harm reduction techniques are, of course, up to the individual as to what they're comfortable with and what they want to choose. I would encourage trying these things to see what best supports them. It's not a one-size-fits-all. People have to find what works best for them.
If you recognize that it can be becoming a problem for you, there are things we can do about that. It's a legitimate medical, psychological, emotional issue that we have good ways of helping people deal with at a pace and with goals that make sense for you.
I think from the perspective of the Responsible Gaming Association of New Mexico, the tribal casino industry wants to be a responsible steward. They want to make sure that people don't get hurt. So the key is to get out front and craft policy and make resources available and engage in public education so that people have an understanding of this, what the potential harms are, and what the resources are if they get into trouble. Seeing people get well is what this is about.